So we have in the portfolio building stage, you have active and passive strategies. So it's a combination because now you have some money. So you're doing some of those buy, refurbish, hold type strategies where you're adding value from the onset so you can retain the property and you don't have to sell on to earn income. But you can do a mix. So portfolio, again, I say is definitely a trial and error stage. But from this stage, you will then be able to figure out, okay, this is what works for me. So, we talk about student-led, we talk about single-leds. These are the sort of strategies that you'd have, that you'd be employing and sort of looking into. So some people do student-leds in Manchester. Some people will say do HMOs in Liverpool. Some people will do buy-to-lets in London. Do you understand? So you'll have these different strategies. And this is you, in a sense, testing out which market works for you. For me, I've decided that my patch is London. I understand London. I understand Northwest London. I have invested in Southeast. I've invested in other parts of London and I appreciate them. But also lifestyle choices will make you make some decisions. So for me, because I have 2 young kids, traveling 2 hours somewhere and traveling 2 hours back is a difficult choice, is a difficult decision to make now. I may eventually change that, but understanding that then, remember that you're not only going to be doing property, you're going to have other competing interests in your life. So you have to compete and sort of manage all of that. So the whole point of this is to say that with portfolio building, it is a combination of active and passive strategies. The aim is that you refining and understanding what works. And within any of these different strategies, if you do decide to go say commercial, then you'll be building up a commercial to resi type of business, or you decided to go into land. It could be any one of the different strategies, but you will be building expertise in that strategy. And that's what you're doing throughout your portfolio building, throughout this stage of your journey. And so how to succeed in this stage is that you want to make sure that you've, again, trial and error again, because remember at this stage, you still don't know exactly what works, but you're really monitoring. You're monitoring your financials, you're monitoring what strategies are working, you're monitoring what areas work. You're really analyzing a lot of data to make sure that you are, you have a clear visibility on what actually works for you. The difference between HMO and student-led, very good question, because they are very similar. Student-leds, obviously, it's the same exact structure. You have a property divided into flats. With student-leds, there's slight variations. That sometimes student-leds can be huge buildings where the whole entire block of, say, 30 rooms or whatever is all catered towards students. You're unlikely to find a HMO that is 30 rooms because that's just going to, especially in this COVID times, it's just going to turn people off. Most HMOs tend to be, say, 10 rooms or less, and more around the 6 to 7 space. So they're huge HMOs. There's some of these larger HMOs, but they're fewer. Most of the people that are in this industry and this HMO that use HMOs as a strategy tend to have, say, 5 rooms, 6 rooms, and they're targeted towards not just students, because some HMOs are students only, but some other HMOs are targeted towards, say, professionals. Some are targeted towards contractors. Some are targeted towards higher end professionals. I saw a company recently, I think called Lively, and their houses are stunning, but each room is like 1,500 per room because they've completely micro-niched into a higher end scale where they're targeting, say, really high income earners that want everything provided for them. So they even have like a game console room. They have everything targeted to those types of clients. So, so even within the strategies, you can see, it's almost like you have like micro niches. So you see some people that are in service accommodation and they only do with the contractor market because they're in an area where there are lots of contractors. So they're not looking for any high end, when they even style out their properties, they don't style them in some kind of jazzy high end. They're very fit for purpose because they know the guys that are coming here don't have time for this. They just come in, it's just heads on beds. They're not they don't need any of the game consoles or any of the Sky TV. They just need somewhere to sleep. So those are the different, you almost have segments within each strategy. And this is what I mean about trial and error, that, yeah, you hear HMOs, and then you discover that even within HMOs, there's some, so service accommodation, I always cater to the higher end because I just thought there was more money in there. But of course, it means more stress because higher end clientele are they're very difficult to work with. But then I had other properties that were catered to more of the budget crowd, and they are not as stressful because they feel like they've gotten a bargain anyway. So, so it's just about understanding the segments within the strategies that you're employing. And so again, while we talk about the trial and error, then so I said visibility is crucial in this stage, because remember that one thing is that you are seeding the people who are going to be your future investors. If you do want to build a portfolio of properties and it's just going to be a side passive thing, then that's fine. You don't have to be visible. You can do your thing on the side. I wouldn't advise it because you don't know what's going to happen in your life. So it's possible that at some stage, maybe you get to a stage in your career where you're passed over for a promotion and you just feel hard done by, and you just have a reassessment of your life, like, why am I even doing all of this? And you could then decide, you know what, I want to build my own thing. You don't know what's going to happen in your life. So I would still say be visible. And it doesn't mean being on social media sort of blasting, which is a choice you can make. But it also means that the people that matter to you know what you're doing and they're aware of the progress that you're making. So for me, that's how I built my own credibility, is that it's just the people that I knew that I used to talk about and tell them what I was doing. And so my first investors, I didn't need to go look for them because they were around me, right? So that's why I say visibility is crucial, in that it doesn't mean you need to be on social media. It just means you need to be visibly talking about what it is that you're doing with people that are around you. Question, in your service accommodation business, do you use platforms like Airbnb? I do. And over the years, different platforms, so you constantly need to be checking and making sure that whatever platform you're using is consistently bringing in business. So, I had multiple. So we're talking Airbnb, Booking.com, all the different platforms, as well as my own personal networks. So don't diminish on your personal networks. That's what actually gets you through the down times. So like the properties now that I have filled, they're mostly filled with my network. They're not filled with people from Airbnb. There's one property I have that's filled by Airbnb. So just being aware of the limitations of the platforms. Explain leverage again. So leverage is where you take on a mortgage. So effectively, I'm interchanging the word leverage with mortgage. The reason why I use the word leverage is because there are different ways to leverage. There are different ways to get funding. In a sense, leverage is getting funding for your project, right? And what happens is, so if you had £50,000 to start off with, you could go and buy a house for £50,000, or you could use leverage and buy a house for £150,000, right? It means you owe based on the amount that you've loaned, but generally, chances are the property you bought for £150,000 has more rent capacity, i.e., £150,000 property probably is a, say, 2-bed in Manchester. You can get £700 or £800 or even £900 from that property. A 50K property, depending on what location, you're probably going to get 300, 400, 500. £500 is possible, right? So just understanding, and to be fair, neither is wrong. Some people are cash-based type of investors. And when we talk about 50K, it's easy to see that there's not much of a difference. But when you start scaling up the business, that's when you start to see the benefits. Because when you have 100K, the difference between a 100K property and a 300K or 350K property, there's that big difference. There's the difference versus a 200K property cash versus what you'll be able to get is a 600K property with leverage, right? So it's understanding that, and also leverage helps you to build quicker. So I have a client at the moment who has a pot of funds, and she could use that to buy cash. And we analyzed both. It always makes more sense to divide the money in two and buy two properties rather than put all of it in one property, right? Unless there are other circumstances, people have different life things. So if you can't get a mortgage, for instance, because say you don't have a regular full-time job, then yes, take the cash and go and buy a house. It's better than leaving it in the bank, right? But if you do have access to be able to get funding, then you always want to at least get some sort of additional borrowing to help boost your investment. But again, that's completely a choice that you have to have a conversation with someone who is a financial advisor to make sure that it's good for you. Okay, so moving on to, so we have visibility is crucial, and then you're developing more expertise, more specialist knowledge in this space as well.